Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the LP Roundtable. Today, I have Joaquim and Vaughn with me, both co-founders of Alpaca Network, but also two guys with incredible experience in both Web3 and AI. Vaughn, welcome to the LP Roundtable. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your background in AI?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having us, Rick. My background is I come from the AI world. I've been in that space for more than a decade now, and I'm located in Montreal, which is one of the hotbeds of AI in the known universe. We have Yashua Bengio, one of the three godfathers in the AI space. He's here, and his lab, Mila, at the Mila Institute. But on my side, I've been building AI systems and AI companies over the last approximately 12 years at this point, and at the same time, keeping a close eye on what's happening in the crypto space, looking for the opportunities for these two worlds to intersect. So that's a bit about me.
Okay, 12 years in AI. That's that's longer than I know the words AI, to
A
be
lot
honest.
has happened, let me tell you.
And how about you, Joaquim? What's your background?
Before we jump into me, I feel like Vaughn is like the we'll say the technical or genius co-founder in the background of AI, and so that also comes with a bit of humility, as most machine learners have. But I feel like you always undersell yourself, man. Like Vaughn has been in this space for so long, like much longer than most people in AI, or longer than blockchains have existed, pretty much. And like through that ended up being a machine learner, started his own AI companies, then after that sold them, then ended up in the private equity side of AI, ended up being involved with the largest holding co in Canada, $250 million fund. So very, very, very deep in the AI space. So like I always appreciate how humble you are, but I also, if we're gonna go deep into what we're doing, I think it also has value in saying it how it is.
More. Let's focus a bit more on Vaughn first, okay? Vaughn, how did you end up in AI to start off with?
Good question. So, this is the behind the scenes, never heard story before. It's happening here live on Rick's podcast, the LP Roundtable, right? Is that that's
Yes.
the name? Okay, cool. Um, so the background here on my side is that I started out in more like I cut my teeth in the business development, or sorry, not business development, business intelligence world where you basically build kind of like data warehouses and things like that and bring all your data into one source, data lakes. It was just kind of at the beginning of the big data revolution where everyone was starting to collect data. And prior to that, I had been an engineer. I studied mechanical engineering and I did a lot of data analysis and statistical analysis. So going into the business intelligence world was my first kind of like step. And it was right at the moment where like this is back in 2010, give or take, where Hadoop and these kinds of like big data systems were just starting to come online. Like Google had just put out a few different projects that like made it possible to kind of like distribute data on multiple machines because up until that point we were just making bigger and bigger servers that were holding larger and larger data sources. But there was no concept of being able to distribute data, and it started to get to a point where we were hitting the upper limit. So we figured out how to do the distributed data on like multiple systems. And then it was all about, okay, now we start as an industry collecting tons of data. What were we actually going to do with it? So I got really interested in the analysis side of things and the statistical side of things, and then ultimately the like machine learning and AI side of things. So I started out with a programming language called R, which is basically used a lot in academia, but it was also used a lot in data science circles back in the day, and built a small company around that, and basically doing like, machine learning algorithms of different like shapes and sizes and models. And at the same time, connecting with the Montreal AI ecosystem, and it was kind of fairly spread out. Like there was this really interesting stuff happening in Mila at the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms, where Yashua Bengio is, and then there was a lot of like programming meetups and stuff like this. And so basically, we brought together this community of people who were focusing on AI and building AI models. And this was right at the moment back in 2012, which the ImageNet moment, which was very, very important stage in the history of AI, where basically the Geoffrey Hinton's lab at the University of Toronto, along with Yashua Bengio, proved that deep learning was actually going to be better than conventional methods for image computer vision analysis. So there was an ImageNet competition, and this was the first time in history that neural networks outperformed kind of like more of the old school methods that had been like, fine-tuned over like 30 years. So everybody saw that. I saw that. People, not a lot of people didn't realize like the implications, but Google certainly did, Microsoft certainly did, and these labs within those large, massive organizations really started to invest heavily into neural networks. That was in 2012. 2013, 2014, there was this like really big spike of these like that kind of came out of ImageNet and that competition. And then it was around 2017, 2018 where the transformer breakthrough happened at Yashua Bengio's lab here in Montreal. And Google ran with it. The attention is all you need paper happened. And then that's what laid the groundwork for ChatGPT and for transformers and LLMs that we know today.
And at which point in time did machine learning become AI, or do we still see this as the same?
I mean, they kind of blend together. There's always the AI is one of those words that has different meanings to different people. Some people talk about AI as performance, or like think about it on like the performance dimension, where it's like, okay, how good is the model? How capable is it to do a given task or challenge, whether it's like image recognition or image segmentation or natural language prompting and question and answering, and that's more like the mainstream way of looking at it is like this benchmark around performance, and that's kind of like a moving goalpost. It's always like, okay, AI is like what's out of reach versus I think more on the technical side of things, it's like certain specific methods. It used to be that we would refer to certain methods like XGBoost or like decision trees. These were like machine learning methods. And then AI was differentiated as neural networks or deep learning or transformers, and in particular neural networks because they scale up and scaling laws and things like that. And so it really depends on who you're talking to. And I think of it in both of these dimensions.
Okay, I remember first time hearing about AI was when I was studying, and it was this example of AI beats humans in chess. Is that what you mean in terms of like
Yeah,
benchmarking?
exactly. Yeah, like there was a time where people would say, okay, when we have a model that's able to outperform humans, that's going to be, AI. Or, and then to make it even more complicated, we start talking about AGI now, and then superintelligence or ASI. And so we've just, like I think the technical community, the academic and research community kind of pushed back on this performance metric and basically said, okay, let's try and define what do we mean by narrow AI versus general intelligence, AGI, versus superintelligence. And then there's the whole PDOOM debate and the whole debate about, okay, when you get AGI, you'll probably instantly have, or closely followed, you'll be able to make progress to ASI. And then there's a wide-ranging debate around that, right?
So what is AGI and what is ASI?
AGI is basically when you have um, a model or some sort of artificial intelligence that's able to perform as well as the average human. That's the definition that I use in basically like most tasks, most human tasks that humans would be able to do. That's the artificial general intelligence. And then ASI is more like when every single task AIs are superior and better than humans. And you can see that there's a compounding effect there. Like once you have one model that is as competent as like the whole species, in theory, it should be able to do things like scientific research, to be able to develop its own new methods and self-improvement, right? So in theory, the idea is like, okay, well, why wouldn't it be able to improve really quickly at that point? And I won't get into the depths of that because that's like a whole other podcast in and of itself. But there are all kinds of reasons and hard constraints that wouldn't be possible. Computing and energy and things like that. It can't actually it can only move bits, not atoms, right? So it can't build data centers. It can't do all of these things. And so the only hope
Yeah.
or way that it would be able to progress to ASI, in my opinion, within a like the term in the industries, the specific term is the fast takeoff or the slow takeoff. Is it like an instant takeoff where like you hit AGI and then bang, it's like, okay, now it's building its own data centers, now it's building its own nuclear power plants, or it's figured out a way to do these things, versus the slow takeoff where it's like, okay, is it like coercing humans into building, nuclear power plants, or is it pretending to be less intelligent than it actually is in order to drive progress forward so that it can eventually get to a critical inflection point?
I think like all of these points though, like what we're seeing is, I feel like it's a moot discussion though whether it's fast or slow, because the point is, if we assume that humanity will continue to be driven towards intelligence, which we always have, similar to a moth to a flame or a light, Like it's going to happen. Like, and so that's actually why I ended up getting a lot more involved in the AI space. I come from a Web3 background, and the more I was looking into AI, the more I was like, wow, we're literally building. I always thought that blockchains were the most transformative technology for humanity until I came across what's happening right now with AI and the speed at which it's growing, which is even more exponential than blockchains. And then when you put AI on blockchain rails, well, then you have what I believe is real Web3, which is like a UI front end of AI instead of websites, and then that is completely customized to yourself and is able to communicate with others, AGI concept, right? And then after that is then able to actually take decisions on behalf of you, ASI concept. But then after that, like we start talking, okay, well, if it becomes that intelligent and is able to communicate tens, hundreds, thousands of millions of times faster than humanity, then at that point, why would it even want to help? And so I think like before we get to that point, though, there are other steps to get there where there's a lot of other implications for humanity that require for a decentralized AI infrastructure to also be present. Because right now, all of that's done by what, 5 companies, 100 or maybe between 100 and 1,000 people own like the majority of the research, the majority of the data, the majority of the compute that allows for all of these structures to and these AIs to come to market. So that's actually like one of the main reasons that I wanted to also get involved in the space, and that we're building a lot of the stuff we're doing. And I think that like with everything you're saying, Vaughn, it just makes it even more, gets me even more fired up about it. And yeah, I'd love
Agreed.
to hear about it. It's wild how quickly it's
Yeah,
moving.
I totally agree. The decentralized piece is certainly mission critical, and like we've talked about this in the past. I think that it's a race between these centralized labs like OpenAI, like Anthropic, and these other sort of players in the industry who will have kind of like centralized control over these models. And we've already seen a lot of reasons why that's probably not the best thing to happen. The less control by small group of people, the better. Versus the decentralized community, where it would be a lot more owned by the common, owned by the collective, user owned, and then it's a lot more democratic and a lot more shared process between what do we as a group think is the right way for these models to exist, and also not to mention kind of this like dynamic in open source where there's a healthy competition between different players in the industry, like what Noose Research is doing, where they're building on the open source models that Facebook is making with Llama, and then creating their own and developing new techniques that can be used to be able to leverage and tap into distributed compute around the globe with distro. Those breakthroughs are really important to make sure that the decentralized AI community has the resources that they need in order to build. And I think that is absolutely what motivates us and drives us. And that's the mission behind Alpaca Network, right? Is to make sure that we arm the rebels, so to speak. I mean, I'm stealing this term from Shopify, but I do think the analogy is actually really like maps on one-to-one with what we're trying to do with Alpaca Network. Shopify exists to enable the e-commerce store like builders, right? And think of them as like arming the rebels against big companies, big behemoths like Amazon. And we want to avoid a situation where there is one major player like Amazon is in the e-commerce industry, right? And we've already seen many reasons for why that may or may not be the best thing long term. But the jury's still out, and we'll see how that plays out over the next 10 or 20 years. But I think in the same idea with decentralized AI systems and centralized AI systems is we can do a lot to make sure that the AI researcher in Montreal and the AI researcher in Bangladesh or the developer in India, anywhere in the world, can build an incredible model, an incredible agent, or fine tune an agent that on a pre-existing open source model that somebody like Facebook has built with Llama or the next iteration of Llama. They can fine tune that on a specific task, and they have the key resources that they need, whether it's access to capital, whether it's access to compute for fine tuning, and or access to a global community that they can tap into instantly. And like these are the three incredible offers that Web3 has, that like instantly you can integrate with a global network of people, of capital, and of compute.
The
So
three C's.
the three C's. I mean, I'm like when I'm chatting with AI researchers, telling them about these superpowers, these Web3 superpowers, it's like, wow. I mean, they're not even aware about these things. And so we're playing this role partly as an evangelist, but also as like where that transaction actually happens and acting as this on-ramp for more agents to come into the ecosystem. Because let's be real, there's a lot of progress that can be made with AI agents today. They're all kind of shitty, let's be honest. And there's so much more progress that can be done to improve the actual utility of these agents. And I'm
And that
excited
will
about
be
that.
done, right, Vaughn? Like, I mean, just think about what
Yeah.
happened with the just over the last I mean, I got involved with this in July. I came across IMOs or initial model offerings in July, and that's when I got into the rabbit hole. And it's been 5 months since then, and like the amount that I've learned, it's like drinking out of a fire hose every single day. I thought that it was drinking out of a fire hose to learn about Web3, which it is, but this is even faster, and especially when you put them together, it's mind blowing. And so, like, for example, what we're seeing with Web3 agents, like there are now Web3 agents that are millionaires.
Well, let me get you off here first. Let me get you off here for a second because I wanted to ask you actually, and we went from AI and the beginning of AI to straight to agents. Actually, my question, what are the most recent breakthroughs that you get excited about? And I think that's probably the agents. Or are there any other AI breakthroughs that excite you right now?
Yeah, I mean,
So
like, so
many.
I already
I'll let
mentioned
Vaughn
the
speak.
distro stuff. Let me just add a few things like call outs. So there's obviously there's kind of like fundamental breakthroughs that alleviate some of the hard constraints for AI researchers and builders and developers. So access to compute, up until this point, it's been you either have to go to a data center and you have to access an H100 or a cluster of H100s. It's very costly and expensive when you go to the major hyperscalers like Google, Amazon, or et cetera. And then what we've seen, the trend is that decentralized compute is has a much lower price point because it's this like globally distributed network of GPUs. But the trade-off there is that in order to train large models, they kind of need to be in one data center because there's really slow basically processing between GPUs, and you need to have them like as closely connected as possible for that data transfer. Noose Research worked on this distro project that basically decreases that transaction cost, so to speak, this pre-processing cost between GPUs by 10,000%. So that means that unlocks like this global pool of compute in a way that was never possible before. So that's going to be really cool. And it also protects us against scenarios like, let's say Facebook decides to stop training, or to stop spending, $100 million a year on data centers to train llama models for whatever business reason. Now there's actually a really easy way for the community to do that at a much lower cost. So that's really cool. That's something that really excites me. And then obviously IMOs, but I'll let Joe talk about that one.
Yeah, totally. I mean, before we jump into the whole IMO stuff, like there's every single week I'm seeing new breakthroughs. Like Nvidia just came out. I don't know if you saw. They just announced that there's going to be essentially a specific like microcomputer that's going to be a chip that allows to run an entire AI locally. So you don't need to go into all of the to all of the major clouds, and you're essentially going to be able to have like similar to a Raspberry Pi. You're going to be able to essentially like customize and build out your own AI. I think
Does
we're
that
going
does that mean
into
that
a
I can
world where
use that chip on a plane without internet, for example?
I
Is that
think. I
how I
mean, don't
envision
quote
it?
me
Yeah,
on it.
Okay.
Don't quote
like
me
the
on it,
yeah,
but I believe that is the case. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, this is game changing. It's going to revolutionize like chip making, and so like now imagine that you're going to be able to incorporate those types of chips in robots. You're going to be able to incorporate those types of chips in everything. So we're going into like a whole new world, honestly, where and it's that world is changing very fast. Where I believe that instead of a world based on an economy based on attention, so an attention based economy, we're going towards an economy focused on units of cognition. So you're going to need to be able to have access to high quality units of cognition and like a large quantity, quality, and speed of cognition is going to be like the main like three main things that you need to look in for. And how do we ensure that those are not all just owned and controlled by a centralized few, and then they choose who's like part of the crew or not that gets access to the best ones. And I'm sure that all of this stuff already exists at the military level, both on the offense and defensive side. But then what happens like when corporations start utilizing it? For example, McKinsey just came out with essentially the equivalent of a Microsoft suite, but for essentially agents that do everything: marketing, operations, accounting, just all the different things. And then so that's like one of the examples. But then how do we ensure that it's not just the top consulting firms in the world that charge $500,000 a year per client, or much more than that, and that's like accessible to all the way down to the mom and pop shop, you know? So, and even just to the freelancer, we're going into a freelance-based economy. So, how do we make that all possible? And I think that that's all about democratizing access to it. And so, Vaughn touched a lot on the importance of these open source codes, which I think is like the way to defend ourselves against the potential negative repercussions of the technologies that we are invariably building. I don't think we're gonna like as a society. I don't think we can stop building. Is by ensuring that there's also that decentralized, democratized counterpart, and that's like what excites me and why I decided to go all in on this. So with that said, what got me into this whole rabbit hole in the first place was IMOs. And for those of you who are listening to this LP Roundtable and who've never heard about me or what I'm doing, because we never really quickly went over it. But I don't come from an AI background. I come from a pure Web3 background. So all of you guys who are listening here who are new to this, I get it that it's like drinking down a rabbit hole, but there's so much to learn and value in learning it. And so that's why a lot of the tools that we've built at Alpaca Network are there for the average Web3 person and even people who are non-native to the space are able to come in and utilize really simple UIs that allow you to get into the space and understand the different tools that are available to you. That's why, for example, Pocket Market is essentially the largest, it's the equivalent of Google search for AI agents. You have 15,000 agents, you just search for them, boom, they're there. So those are the types of tools that we're immediately bringing to market so that people like you and me who don't necessarily understand everything about AI like Vaughn are able to immediately like jump into it. So with that said, the thing that brought me into the entire space was the IMOs, or the initial model offerings, which blew my mind. So they're a new crowdfunding model for AI researchers and founders and developers and anyone who runs an interesting model that could make revenue to offer a portion of that revenue in the form of tokens to anyone who ends up investing in that model. You, rather than like buying shares in the company like a public company, you get certain tokens that represent a percentage of the revenue, and that revenue model is baked in at the smart contract level utilizing a new ERC standard called ERC 7641. So that standard was created by the Aura protocol like about a year ago and then brought to market, I believe, in the beginning of summer 2024. So very recent, and then since then like it has been propagating, and we really want to have Pocket Launch become the premier platform focused on IMOs. The platform is also live. Everything is already up and running, and we're in the process of finalizing some of the first projects that want to launch their IMOs with us alongside a lot of the other top launch pads in the industry.
Okay, so we have touched upon decentralized compute as a use case of Web3, where Web3 and AI merge. We've also the IMO models where revenues get tokenized of AI models. Are there any other overlaps that how AI and Web3 or blockchain enhance each other or need each other? I think, for example, about verification. I think like data verification on the blockchain. I assume that's something that might be necessary in the future. Or like for
100% data verification, cybersecurity to see like to if any machine is compromised. We're speaking with projects for potential for stuff related to that. Anything related to trading, copy trading, what have you, like, and then that we're already seeing with the first agents that have come to market. There's literally an agent right now that is a millionaire, completely autonomous, has raised millions of dollars, and to the point of Vaughn, then after that, like having AGI that then is able to fund its own, we'll say, research or its own development or its own energy supply. That's like where I find it's possible as you have these different AIs that can work together. But similar to any free-flowing market, free-flowing markets have a lot of different interests that are competing, and so I think that very quickly the market will be flooded with competing interests of different AIs that will go and create a new balance that's just like trading and free flowing at much faster transactions across everything. And so the only way to make that happen again is by having that counterbalance with proper decentralized open source software and infrastructure that makes it possible for everyone to get involved with it.
Yeah, like the analogy that I think of going back to the Shopify example, where Shopify's created this platform, this e-commerce platform where anybody can create a store. You could be a big brand or you could be, a small drop shipper or something like that. I think the same thing, if I was to project or extrapolate a little bit in the AI industry, will become true for AI agents. So think about Shopify stores as AI agents. So Shopify stores earn revenue. They start to generate revenue. agents are going to start to generate revenue like they're their own business, and they'll do a specific task or unit of work. They'll be able to come to Alpaca Network to effectively transact with other agents and or people who basically post tasks on our platform that have bounties or rewards associated with them. And then it's this, this free market competition between agents to be either the first to unlock the bounty or the best to unlock the bounty. And that creates this really interesting dynamic in the industry that will drive the progress of agents forward. Because where we are today is you have a lot of derivative agents that exist in the ecosystem, and the vast majority of them, like virtuals, and these other projects that exist within Web3 are focused on either entertainment or trading. And we'll be able to open up new avenues, new markets, so to speak, beyond those two specific ones that focus really revolve around units of work associated with rewards or value. And these agents will compete for those rewards. And if they can't do it, or if they're too slow, then any human could pick up the task and actually do the job, similar to what we already see today in marketplaces like Fiverr or Upwork. And then we have the third class that emerges, which is the hybrid AI developer, builder, researcher who says, hey, I can build or fine tune an agent that actually is better than these other agents. And that is going to drive the actual progress forward of the AI agent industry.
Okay. Joaquim,
Crazy stuff happening.
Yeah,
some
that's a
wild
lot.
stuff.
The agents is a new world opening up, right? And I see just outside of these use cases that we just said, entertainment or trading, there's so many different ways that people that actually know how to train an agent can literally build a front end of a new product or a new game, right? Or if you want to be a game creator. That's how I see it. I don't even know if that's true.
My screen for a second?
Sure, you can.
Nice. So to that point, like everything we just talked about, if you are still listening, and hopefully you're learning a bunch of stuff here, and I hope that every time I go on a call or one of the AMAs, my number one objective is to make sure someone came out of it learning things they didn't know before, and I try to make that a promise each time. And so now I'm gonna show you this tool, which is literally blowing my mind every time I use it. Maybe I'm biased about it, but like literally just go to Alpaca Network AI, open app, and then Pocket Market is here. You can also just go to market.alpacanetwork.ai and it's there. But then like let's say there's anything that you want here. You're hearing about these AI tools for the first time. All you've ever used is ChatGPT, maybe not even. And so then what's this number one thing that you can use here? Like I don't know, what is it that you want to do? What's something that you would want to automate in your life, Rick?
Trading.
So like trading, for example, is there. Or I don't know, like let's say you want more help with scheduling. Well, great. Here's like a bunch of different pages. There's 4 full pages of scheduling AIs, and then I want one that gives me a free trial. Reclaim AI. That's the one that Vaughn and I use. Amazing. That's why. But yeah, there was like literally 270 pages worth of design stuff. And then so if we go deeper into, I don't know, like specifically like architecture, well then after that you have specific stuff related to AI maps or literally Arch's AI literally set up for documents, or then so like actual like visual architecture of code. Or I don't know, you said gaming. All right, well, what are some of the gaming AIs? You can literally like create AI generated adventures. Literally like every single thing you can imagine.
There is a sports betting one. I see a sports betting one. If you could just go to betting. Yeah.
Betting. Oh, cool. My sports AI. Nice. But you see, like this is so we're gonna get, for example, like this is for sure the MVP, but there's more and more and more tags that we're continuously using. We're also utilizing AI to make itself better and better. And the idea is to be like that number one search engine for all the best AI agents. And if there's some that are missing, let us know. Or, we were talking about Web3 agents. Well, what are some of the ones really smashing it right now? Well, let's see.
Far's going to a Billy.
Yeah, we can see. What's up with AIXPT? Well, boom, we have everything here related to it. We're continuously adding in everything else related to the different groups, and then like you can go and search everything related to them as well. So, these are specific trading focused AI agents.
And let me just add one thing. And like we're at stage one, like Joe's saying, of this. We're already the world's largest marketplace for AI agents, both in Web 2 and Web 3. we're doing everything we can to bring on more sources and make them easier to find. Like Joe said, increasing the discoverability through different keywords or through actual natural language prompting. So if you actually go and open the app, you can start to interact with our agent that will then put out a list of different agents for you within the home, the Chatpaca home. And then that's going to keep getting better. Yeah, exactly. That's going to keep, no, it's the hub. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you
It's going
just
to
go to
keep
the
getting
main
better.
website and you open the app or app at or whatever. So then, like, I don't know,
Exactly. So Paca Chat.
like what's something we want, what's something you want to learn about? So I don't know. Tell me more about AI agents, whatever, and then it's gonna go and give you like specific information about them, where they're at, and where we're and how they work, what they do, and then how to find more throughout the ecosystem. So it's continuously utilizing essentially and pushing you throughout the ecosystem, throughout the hub, so that you know you see like through the marketplace you can find and monetize these AI agents, what have you. So really, really,
Fun.
really powerful
And
stuff.
eventually we'll get to a point where through that interface, you'll be able to interact with our agent. You'll be able to tell it what you're working on. It's going to ask you a few questions, and then it will understand the task, the specific task that you're trying to accomplish. And then it's going to give you the option to say, okay, is this the task you'd like to put into the task registry? If yes, how much of a bounty would you like to put with some sort of recommended range, let's say? And then it exists within the task registry, and that's where other agents can go and compete for that reward. And then eventually we will be able to even get more collaboration out of those agents by acting as this like delegator, so to speak, where multiple agents can be integrated into a single task. And agents are actually just trading with agents, and it's a completely like autonomous kind of like um, m- microtransactions that can occur between agents to get specific tasks done. And that's a huge undertaking. That's something that we're starting and we've already started incubating within Alpaca Lab, and we're putting more resources and energy and attention into that in 2025, starting in January.
Okay. There's a lot of talks about generative AI. Is this still generative AI, or is this another aspect of the total AI industry?
So right before you jump in, Vaughn, I want to say like some of the things that launch on Pocket Launch and all of the stuff that's in Pocket Marketplace, there's hundreds, probably thousands of those that are generative AI. What we're focused on is being that decentralized AI research and development lab that creates that AI coordination layer that Vaughn was just talking about. And that allows for different generative AI or any other types of AIs, including planning, reasoning, logic AIs that are going to come out, to then stack with each other. And that's where it becomes interesting, because what Vaughn was talking about in terms of the next level of Chatpaca, which is what we saw on the hub page there, and even when you're doing the search function on Pocket Market, we'll be able to incorporate it there as well. Essentially what we're doing is prompt engineering, right? And so like there's like a whole career now that's done around, like some people that are like building their entire career around learning how to prompt correctly, essentially learning how to communicate properly what it is that you want done with certain AIs. And then each different AIs like require different prompts. So then like having an optimizer that it will go and prompt correctly for each of these AIs and allow them to communicate with each other is in itself like its own specialized AI agent, which is the main thing that we want to focus on in building. And I believe like just last like this week, Vaughn, you were speaking of someone that's working on something like this that we're going to be incubating. No?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a few exciting announcements coming up for January and specifically with the Alpaca launch and Alpaca Lab. But yeah, we're always interested in collaborating with different researchers, and we have a few that we've already started with, and you'll hear more about that soon. But the there's lots of exciting challenges and problems to solve within this industry, right? Like there's a lot of work to be done, and we want to make sure that we're helping push it forward and giving the builders the resources that they need in order to be able to build. And in addition to that, creating open source code that will actually push the industry forward. So, for example, and in many cases, that could mean collaborating with some of the larger players in the industry, like Anthropic. So they've actually proposed a really interesting standard called the Model Context Protocol, which solves a bunch of problems that the industry faces right now in agents, because there's so many agents coming online, but there's no APIs for these agents. And so how do you actually figure out what an agent can do? Well, one way you could go about doing that is kind of creating some sort of standard where this is the type of language you should use in order to access this particular type of functionality. And that will unlock interoperability and standardization in a way that will really drive things forward much, much faster. And this is not the first time that the open source community has faced these kinds of problems. It's the same reason for each new programming language you don't see issues whenever you try and integrate with the software development environment. That's because the industry agreed on a standard for code syntax and everybody started adopting that standard. And so instantly this sort of like n by m matrix, that's the name for this problem. It's like, okay, there's n programming languages and there's m possible places that those programming languages need to be integrated. And you don't want this like sparse matrix that starts to fill in. You want it to be instantly like each application just knows what to do. And that's why APIs exist. And so that still needs to exist within the AI agent landscape. And so I predict there's gonna be a lot of good progress on that front, and we're gonna be a part of that in 2025.
And like if I envision this is the infrastructure that's necessary to make agents work together. Or
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like so on the one hand, just in turn, like you were asking about generative AI, here's the way that I think about these things. At the low level, you have the model, and a model could be an LLM, could be whatever, and that model is basically it doesn't really have any way to interact in the world or have it doesn't have any agency. That's what an agent is. An agent can actually take an action of some sort. It can actually do something. So like ChatGPT, you go there and it's a great model and you are the actor that's driving it, right? You are the agent that's interacting with the model. But now where agents come in, it's this like level of autonomy in a sense that they can have. And then we as humans take on that burden of figuring it out with ChatGPT. It's like, okay, this is what my task is. This is how I'm like mapping it on to my reality. And so the leap to take agents to doing that, to get agents to do that is a big one. And that's where these model context protocol ideas and interacting with the desktop environment become really
Okay.
important.
Okay, my previous question would have been, where do you see AI right now in terms of like, we have seen a lot of development happening in the past few years and a lot of progress ever since ChatGPT came out. Suddenly everyone can use AI in a sense. Is there a lot of improvement still left in the tank for a consumer level, or is it mainly that the infrastructure now is being built up so that consumers actually can start interacting with like combining different AIs, for example? Like, is there a lot of room for improvement left?
So I have a controversial answer and also an optimistic answer.
Okay.
It's both at the same time. So I think that, and these are my predictions, so take them with a grain of salt. But I think that we've seen the vast majority of what we'll get out of LLMs. I think about these things as S curves, and I think that the LLMs are at the top of the S curve starting to slow down. They're starting to decelerate. But that doesn't mean that ChatGPT, and even if we turned off all progress on models today, there's still like 10 or 15 or maybe even 20 years of dividends that will come from integrating those models and this new way of building software into our applications. We're starting to see a slowdown there in terms of the actual development and the scaling laws. That's what I think. Still remains to be seen. There's always potential breakthroughs that can come, but we've exhausted all the sources on the internet of data to a certain extent. There's always, niche, but now the opportunity is basically around fine tuning. So we have these really good general foundational models, and there's other foundational models people are building for like, video and things like that. So we will see more progress there. But when it comes to text, we have good enough models with the cutting edge stuff that Llama's done and like the 450 billion parameter models. Like those are really, really good models, and they have enough. And now it's about, okay, how do you fine tune them for specific applications? And you can use small data sets to do that, or you can actually just use some sort of specific knowledge about a task in the form of a prompt or in whatever to be able to really clarify how it needs to act or what it needs to be doing. And that's where fine tuning comes in. And I think we will see a lot of really interesting developments that come from that. And where the industry the AI research domain seems to be shifting is away from compute at the pre-training level and at the training level, and shifting it more towards what's being called test time compute. So it's kind of like at the post-training level. Once the model's actually
Tell
been
us more about
trained,
that. I've never heard about that before.
basically the idea is that you train these models and it's sort of split up into a few different stages. But post-training is this kind of this idea of fine-tuning, where you're basically making it good for a specific application or task. And OpenAI is doing this right now with ChatGPT with O1, and they call it chain of thought. And there's these different techniques that people are testing out and playing with now. But I've heard it described by Stephen Wolfram. He used an interesting analogy to kind of like pathfinding algorithms. One is basically this interesting, elegant pathfinding algorithm where the way that AI agents and models think is actually by speaking. By the more words they predict on a given prompt, the more knowledge that they have and the clearer they are at thinking about a specific topic. The way that O1 works is that you prompt it and then it goes out and it explores the direction that it thinks is the right direction to go. And then it kind of returns back and it reflects on that and it says, okay, was this the right, now, given what I know now, what have I learned that may change the way that I approach the prompt? And so it's doing this in real time, but it's expensive in terms of compute. It requires a lot more compute at inference time. So they're scaling up like at inference time, they're putting a lot more compute, which is why the new version of ChatGPT costs $200 per user, because they have to actually spend a lot more for the compute that you are doing in real time. And there's going to be all kinds of methods that get developed to do this more efficiently. O1 right now is this really elegant pathfinding algorithm. There was the ARC AGI prize that I was participating in that pioneered a bunch of really interesting concepts here. There was some researchers from MIT that did something called test time training, a method called test time training that the paper is called The Surprising Effectiveness of Test Time Training. And it actually works quite well when you fine tune models on given tasks at test time rather than in the pre-training phase. So there's going to be a lot more dividends that get created for the industry when we are exploring test time compute.
Okay. I heard something recently about small language models and large language models. And when I heard this first time, I thought, okay, a small language model is someone who puts in a lot of data about one specific topic and trains that model. But then I was talking to another AI researcher and he told me that actually the way that they do it now is they start from the large language model and then distillation. Is that the right word? I'm not even sure. That's what I'm asking you, Vaughn. Is that the right word? Distillation? That they then go to that small model to come to a specific solution. Did I understand that correctly, or is this just one very specific use case that one researcher is researching, or is that the general
I mean,
way?
there's all kinds of ways. I haven't heard that term in particular applied to this,
Maybe I'm
but
wrong.
I've heard
Maybe I'm even using wrong words. Not sure.
lost in translation. It's all good.
Yeah.
But it could very well be that there's methods that use this kind of approach or take analogies from chemical engineering
Yeah.
concepts and things like that. Who knows? Biomimicry is a super inspiring space, but I'm sure there will be many places that AI takes inspiration from that. But there's all kinds of methods people are using for compression, being able to go from like a 450 billion parameter model down to a 7 billion parameter model, because when it's at that level, it can fit on a phone and you can run it on the edge, or you can run it in an airplane without an internet connection. And so being able to like compress a model for a specific task, and there's going to be lots of different terms that people use for that. Sorry, my dog in the background is barking.
That's
Bear
okay.
with me.
How far away are we this is a guesstimation, right? How far away are we of everyone having this model in their pocket, in their phone?
Man, I mean, I think we already have it. That exists today. We have 7 billion parameter models, right? That do fit on phones that are relatively small and compact comparatively, or 1.5 million parameter models. And there will be a lot of work and effort that goes into making those models more and more efficient, more and more, performant for specific tasks. Whereas like the 450 billion parameter models, they're massive. You need like many machines to run them, and you can only do that in the cloud. And so I think the game will be about this this optimization problem.
If my phone is already smart enough to do these low parameter models, why doesn't someone build a marketplace of different small models that I can download for my use cases, that then I have an AI in my pocket and I don't need internet
Why does
anymore?
someone not build that, Rick?
Yeah.
Listen, never say
There's an
never.
infinite amount of
Let's
opportunity
just
here,
say
guys.
maybe it's on the roadmap.
Maybe it's on the
Infinite
roadmap.
amount of opportunity. Zero promises there, but yes, infinite amount of opportunity there, and we every day we're seeing new incredible opportunities show up. Just like yesterday, someone internally in the team, or actually 2 days ago now, time flies. Someone in the team like brought up an idea, and it was like, why don't we just like create this? I'll just say it, like whatever. If you're still listening and you're an hour in, then you deserve to have some alpha. But essentially, we were like, wow, it'd be awesome if there was a note taker for spaces, you know? And it's like, okay, wow, we already have all the necessary, like, you know, development team and expertise and distribution, and that would be a perfect thing to IMO. So, you know, no promises on making that happen, but the reason I bring it up is because like it's just one of hundreds of ideas that are going to show up every single time that someone puts a task, you know, in the market, in Taskpaca once that's live, or every time that we have any type of data on what people are searching for the different AIs that they want. Whenever we see gaps for it, for example, Rick, you asked, you know, you want one for gambling. Okay, great. Well, we saw there was a gap there because there weren't any like when I searched for that specifically. Great gap. You know, there's gaps everywhere. So, extremely excited about what's coming next. I haven't seen anyone else who's building anything similar to us in terms of like really being that home and on ramp for AI agents. And we aim to be super friendly with everyone in the space, because when we can't help on the Paca Lab side or with Paca Launch and adding them to the marketplace, well, then we can bring them in contact with the right compute partners, the right capital partners, and the right communities, whether those are launch pads, whether those are other major associations, whether those private communities. So really, really, really exciting times ahead. Unfortunately, guys, I'm 8 minutes late to my next call, so I do need to drop. But
No worries.
Just one last thing, Joe. If you need to drop, go for it. I'll just close out one last thing. Feel
all
free
right, well, just in
to.
that case, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. That is still listening. You're a message away. You can reach out directly to us. Just go to Telegram or to X. We're also going to open up Discord very soon, and really, really excited to have you on board with this project. It's just the beginning, and we're excited to build together. So let's see where we bring it all.
Let's build.
Onwards and upwards, guys. Thanks
Thank
so
you very much.
And thank you, Rick, for having us on LP Roundtable. This is a great pleasure. Looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you. See ya.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, and then to echo that, on that note, I mean, we obviously we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Let's build together. That's the whole point behind the lab and the Alpaca lab. Like what Joe's mentioning around Paca Notes is a great example of something in Paca Lab that we're incubating. We're also not, we don't want to reinvent anything that already exists. Like, so for example, this model marketplace idea, there's lots of model marketplaces that exist out in the world right now, right? And so being able to integrate with the right ones, whether it's Hugging Face or whether it's something that's a little bit more fine-tuned for our needs, definitely will be the strategy. And then working closely with the AI research community and the Web3 research community, the decentralized AI research community, which is pretty small right now, but growing quickly. And shout out to all the builders who are hacking away right now. And my call to action is reach out to us. We'd love to work together, figure out how we can support what you're doing, and how we can build, and make sure that the builders have the resources that they need in order to build and ultimately win the race.
Okay. Yeah. I have one more question
Thank
for
you
you.
so much.
Wait, no,
Sure, yeah,
no, it's not time to go yet. I want you to make a prediction. I want you to make a
sure.
prediction. What do you think is gonna be the AI agent that's gonna break through into mainstream and that a lot of people will use and will interact with? Because right now we see a lot of these agents that are either connected to crypto or do one specific use case, but the people around me are not really using AI yet a lot. Like, they're not using AI as they're using TikTok. What's going to be that agent or that AI application, which is not ChatGPT, that everybody will be using?
Wow, what a question. I mean, my first reaction to that question is if I knew the right answer to that, I mean, it's I probably wouldn't even say it so that we could build it first.
Hmm.
Obviously, I can make a few predictions though. I mean, I think we'll see a lot of really interesting stuff continuing to come out from like the centralized research labs. I think that Anthropic and OpenAI have a lot of things cooking on their side where, or Mistral, for example, actually, I got to mention Mistral. Like they're, doing a lot of really amazing open source work. I feel like silly that I haven't mentioned them up until this point because they are a crucial player in the space as well, among many others. In terms of the killer app, I mean, I think about it more like at a market level, and so you're thinking more at the consumer level. Like for example, within Web3, we've seen so many different agents that are focused on alpha and giving alpha about what's the next token that I should buy and why is this a good project and all of like that kind of thing. It aligns very well with the ethos of Web3 and what, a certain subset of Web3 and a big subset of Web3 really cares about. And so how does that map on to mainstream consumers? Like I'm thinking about people who are spending their days writing, emails and how so much effort and time and energy goes into writing great emails. And we already see people like using ChatGPT a ton for that. I think that we'll probably see a product. Either it's going to be something that Google integrates into Gmail, or whether it's something like, for example, Superpowered or Superhuman. Sorry,
Mhm.
Superhuman has like a really good interface. If those guys don't do an AI agent that just blows whatever email, the way we think about writing email out of the water, I'd be really surprised. Or some other company.
Yeah.
Because think about how much time do you waste writing emails? How much time does the world waste writing emails?
There's a lot of administrative tasks that I would just rather let an AI agent do because it is just reading documents. And if the agent could give me a summary and I just say yes, no, that would save so much time and energy of so many
The
stupid
other
tasks.
category, I personally would love an agent. If somebody can build this, hit me up. But this is a complicated one. Notifications, right? How do you deal with notifications? There's so many random notifications that come up day to day. And so, I mean, either you just kill the source, the root cause of those notifications, or you have to address it because it's, something that actually is useful or relevant or matters, right, in your day to day. But it's a battle. It's an ongoing battle, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your computer. Honestly, I think that's $1 billion market in and of itself if somebody can figure out how to integrate properly into the right systems.
Hmm. Yeah, I see ways how that might be possible. A model that learns based off how you tap away or click on notifications, and after a week it kind of knows what's your preferences. So
Yeah,
it
the issue
should be
though is getting
possible.
access to the
Yeah,
data
exactly. Yeah, it's
and integrating
siloed.
into the source. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. But who knows
Okay.
with computer use and who knows what Google's cooking up as well on the Gemini side of things, being able to integrate with Android. I know there's a lot of exciting stuff that they're working on. I think they're really going to take the lead in 2025 again. So we'll see what Android has coming up in the next few years.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I I keep in mind a lot of exciting stuff is coming in the AI space. We're far from being done building. There is a lot more coming,
Yeah,
and both with
but
Alpaca,
niche
but
models
also
too,
very niche models.
right? Niche
Yeah,
models will have these massive use cases and then we have all these gaps to fill, so much to build, so little time. It's time to build.
exactly. It's time to build, and that's what you guys are doing very well right now. Vaughn, thank you very much for your time. Full disclosure, nothing in this podcast has been financial advice. Alpaca Network, I'm an investor, I'm an advisor. Vaughn is the co-founder, Joaquim is a co-founder. So we are all biased if we talk about Alpaca Network. We all love it
Yeah,
very much. We love it very much. We are very excited of what's coming. Have a look at the website. Go and check it out. Vaughn, thank you very much. People want to follow you. Where should they go?
you can follow me on Twitter, V DeMarco or Von Vroomer. That's probably the best place. If not, you can find a link to email us on the Alpaca Network website.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And see you next time.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. This was a joy.
We'll have to
Thanks a
follow
lot.
up on these predictions. So next year.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Bye bye.
Have a good one. Bye.